Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I wish Pokemon battles in the video games looks as crazy as they do in the anime? Well, Pokkén Tournament is the game for you. Hey guys, it's TheJWittz here with a Nintendo review video. It's been a long while since we've done one. My biggest fear once I started is I felt like I had to make a new review video for every major Nintendo release that dropped, and they took up a ton of my time. But with some time passing, I think I'm cool to do reviews every now and then as new titles speak to me. For those of you new to reviews here, I'm not really a fan of review scores. No 7.8s to be found, but in general, I just want to inform you about the game, let you know what I personally liked and didn't like, and hopefully give you the information that you need to decide if this game is worth a purchase for you or not. It was nearly 3 years ago when I talked about the fan game Pokémon Type Wild and wishing for an official Pokémon fighting game. And now, here we are. Pokkén Tournament is an unlikely marriage between the makers of Pokémon and the makers of Tekken, although ultimately it feels a little different from every fighting game that I've played before. As different attacks and damage are dealt, the playing field actually morphs in and out between a wide three-dimensional field seen in titles like the Ultimate Ninja Storm games, and a non-moving two-dimensional plane seen in classic titles like Street Fighter. Battles take place in the new Ferrum League, where giant arenas are constructed that allow for intricate fights between Pokémon while ignoring their natural elemental weaknesses. Visually, this game is an absolute treat to Pokémon fans. It's about time that we've been able to play a Pokémon game in HD, and no, Pokémon Rumble U doesn't count. While the game's cast is a little smaller, tying Street Fighter V with exactly 16 fighters, each Pokémon is loaded with fluid animations and personalities, making it a joy to play through them all and find one that resonates with you. Every character comes equipped with one transformation, often a Mega Evolution, and one incredibly impressive Burst Mode attack. Ridiculous spectacle moves that range from impressive, to adorable, to downright terrifying. The arenas themselves, while not especially high on polygon counts, are also peppered with Pokémon cameos and references. It's downright charming, and because most of the action is focused on the battles, I found myself noticing new Easter eggs even on stages that I've played dozens of times on before. In battle, the game feels like a living, breathing Pokémon world. Fans of titles like Super Smash Bros. Might find themselves a little disappointed when it comes to surprises, though. Only the 2 Mewtwo characters need to be unlocked, and you can already view the entire game's cast on the Pokkén Tournament website. If you were hoping to see a different playable Pokémon in the game, it's possible they might show up in the Deep Assist pool, but a vast majority of your fighters are going to be available the second you start up the game. Mechanically, Pokkén Tournament is simple, and I'm putting that word in air quotes because like Smash Bros, it's simple, but there's an absurd amount of depth to be found beyond the easy-to-understand mechanics. Like Smash, most attacks in this game are formed out of one direction plus one button, whether that be up, down, backward, or forward, plus a button for light attacks, one for heavy attacks, and one for specials. There are also separate commands for grabs and counters, which shape your traditional fighting game attack triangle. Pokkén Tournament is very set on teaching newcomers these basic mechanics, but it gives experienced players the opportunity to learn more advanced techniques pretty quickly. Speaking of newcomers, I'm sure plenty of new players will end up with some choice words for the game's aide, Nia. She likes to talk. A lot. At first I thought it might be helpful, because she'll call out advice that new players might not realize right away. Oh, I can't counter when they do a grab? Cool, thanks Nia. But give it 10 matches or so and she'll start to feel extremely repetitive. Thankfully, the game gives you plenty of ways to work around this, either making her appear less, making her disappear from matches entirely, or even changing her voice from English to Japanese. I cannot tell you why, but Japanese Nia makes me feel about 50% less angry. There are 5 different tiers of training modes for each character, each aimed to eventually give you a full feel of a character's playstyle. Soon I began to pick up on the little quirks of each character and start to appreciate the cast as a whole. Unlike a lot of fighting games, the HP and charge times for each character differ quite a bit. Oh wow, Machamp has an air grab, and Gengar's burst attack is unblockable, and Pikachu Libre gets a buff every time you successfully land a grab, and so on. Everyone has a special buff unique to their character. The inputs for this game are not complicated, but finding the optimal time to use each skill and learning which moves connect with each other to form true combos are the real depth of it. The only thing I don't like about games is that they seem to go by pretty quickly. Part of this is due to the absurd nature of the synergy burst attacks. Not only does activating burst give you access to one of these attacks, some of them dealing almost half a meter on their own, but you also get a time transformation sequence where all of your attacks are immensely more powerful than normal. On average, I feel like single games take anywhere from a minute to as low as 30 seconds, depending on where each player's burst meter is at the start of the match. If you like fast-paced action, Pokkén definitely delivers that, but I do wish that attack damage on everyone was dropped just a little bit to extend playing time. Pokkén Tournament is interesting in that it has a lot of content where I wasn't expecting, but it lacks in content in areas that I was hoping to see more. I've touched on one area where there's a good amount of depth already, the extensive and helpful practice dojo for introducing new characters, but by far the most pleasantly unexpected part of Pokkén for me was its massive selection of avatar collection items. This game's avatar creator makes Kalos look like a joke. There are dozens of hats, hairstyles, accessories, and clothing styles to choose from, each item with 10 or more color options. Every mode spits out coins to purchase these, giving you a reason to constantly revisit the shop no matter what you're doing. I've mentioned how badly I want an extensive trainer customization in every main series Pokemon game, and getting a taste for all the options in Pokkén just makes me want that even more. But like I mentioned, there are some areas in Pokkén that left me wanting, and the biggest one is single player. In many ways, I'm reminded of the recent Street Fighter V release, which has heavy focus on competitive multiplayer, but bare-bones story mode and only a few other casual options. Likewise, the story mode in Pokkén is very light, with a generic league-based setting that you must climb to the top 4 through a series of battles against the computer. Over 90% of your games are going to be against generic, randomly generated avatars, so there isn't much character-to-character story interaction in the league mode at all. The idea is that you enter a league and then battle in 5 straight 2 out of 3 matches. At the end, depending on how many of the 5 games that you won, you'll bump up a rank. Once your rank hits 8 or higher, you're entered into the top 8 tournament. When you win the top 8 tournament, then finally you do another battle against a gym leader-like figure to gain access into the next league. As you do this, you can slowly level up individual fighters with stat boosts, but from what I've seen, these boosts are not present in online multiplayer, and they can be turned off in local play as well. There's a tiny bit of plot that crops up from league to league, focused on the mysterious Shadow Mewtwo, but that alone isn't worth the several offline battles that you have to do to increase your rank. It can often take over 20, sometimes even over 40 individual matches with trainers before you can even enter the top 8 player tournaments. Check out this example. I lost only 1 game over the entire time I played single player, but the time that I did, my rank only went up 1 point even though I won all other the 4 games in my set. It's still good practice if you're looking to learn a character, but exhausting if you're just trying to unlock all of the game's content to bring into the online mode. Nearly all of the games support Pokemon, and many of the avatar options are also found here, so you'll have to trudge through it eventually. Another thing I don't understand is that despite the game giving you a pyramid image for each league, implying that the leagues that are tougher are smaller as you go along, each league actually increases in size, getting as big as 90 total participants in Chroma. Outside of this long, but not especially deep single-player challenge, there isn't really a lot else to do offline. The game's local 2-player play requires 1 player to use the gamepad screen, and it unfortunately cuts the game speed down to 30 frames per second. Here's a sample of what that looks like. Casually, this works out okay, but if you're looking to practice frame-specific inputs, hoping to set up a local tournament, or you just want to play with 2 players with neither of you using a gamepad controller, you're best off investing in a Wii Ethernet cable to play head-to-head through 2 Wii U's over LAN. I was able to test the 60 frames per second LAN play during the Pokemon 20th Anniversary Twitch stream, and during that event, it ran flawlessly. In terms of controllers, I haven't yet received the wired USB Hori controller designed for use with this game, but our friend Shofu has gotten a chance to play with it, and here are his thoughts.
I was able to get my hands on an Ori pad a little bit before the release of Pokkén, and the biggest thing I can say about it is that it's definitely a different controller. The shape of the controller is the biggest thing that stands out to me. Other than that, it's fairly simple. It has 4 buttons, it has a directional pad, and it has 2 triggers, as well as 4 buttons on the bottom, which seem to be specifically used to access the start menu, as well as switch back to different phases in training mode. The biggest thing you'll notice about the Ori pad is that it's missing an analog stick, which actually makes sense to me, because in Pokkén it seems that the D-pad is much more responsive than the analog stick on the Pro controller. The D-pad just seemed to give me more control over my character and give me an overall smoother experience in every single possible way. Earlier I mentioned the shape of the controller, so I want to show you guys what I'm talking about. So here I have a side-by-side comparison of the Ori pad and the Wii U Pro controller. If you look at the controllers from this angle, you'll see that the Pro controller is sitting flat on the desk with the buttons facing upward, but the Ori pad is sitting flat on the desk with the buttons facing towards the wall. It's a strange shape. The grips are really thick compared to the Pro controller. The triggers on the controller are square and don't really feel natural at first. So it definitely seems like this controller is going to take some getting used to, because it's just an overall strange shape and feel compared to any other controller I've used in my lifetime. But at the end of the day, I recommend you try out the Ori pad. It is the official Pokkén tournament controller after all. Not only that, but it plugs directly into the Wii U via USB, and it's always nice to have a wired connection when you're using a controller on a gaming console. And my final point, it is most certainly better than the gamepad.
Thanks, Shofum! I know I've covered a lot of my concerns with Pokkén Tournament in this review, but there is one area where I feel it really shines. To the surprise of few, this game is designed with competitive one-on-one play in mind, and the online battle mode so far feels great. Almost every online game I've played has felt completely lagless, and while I'm sure professional fighting game players may be able to pick out lag better than I can wholeheartedly say it is miles better than Super Smash Bros. So far. To be fair, I have only played with servers of a few hundred other review copy players, which could vary greatly from the game's worldwide release when it launches, but a majority of my one-on-one matches were with players outside of the United States, and I didn't have any issues. Pokkén also has a nice rank-up feature online, giving you 3 strikes to rank up if you build enough wins, or 3 chances to lose your rank if you fall behind too far. The way the system is built, it should be able to only match you up with other players around the world that are at your skill level. There are also casual unranked matches available as well if you're looking to just test a character against another human. Because the games are so fast-paced, I do wish that the default online ranked play option was best 3 out of 5 instead of 2 out of 3, but at the very least you'll be able to see a lot of new opponents in a short amount of time. Ultimately, Pokkén Tournament was designed to be approachable to beginners of this genre, while still having a deep pool of practice and online modes to fuel a competitive community. There are very few fighting games out there, especially brand new games, that will be getting the head start toward a competitive lifespan than Pokkén Tournament. Between it already being announced for top fighting game events like CEO and EVO, and its inclusion in Pokémon's own competitive tournament circuit, there are going to be a lot of trainers out there hoping to be the very best. As someone that already watches multiple hours of fighting games every single day on live streams, Pokkén is going to fit perfectly with my regular viewing schedule. Between the smooth animations and colorful areas, it is going to be a delight to spectate, even if it isn't the kind of game that you think you'd enjoy playing. The game is very appropriately called Pokkén Tournament. It's an invitation to join the ranks and see how you truly stack up competitively against the rest of the world. If engaging alternate modes or story is what keeps you interested in a fighting game, then you're probably better off exploring titles like Soul Calibur, Mortal Kombat, and of course, Super Smash Bros. But if all you want is a chance to battle players around the globe, just like the fights you see in the anime, Pokkén Tournament provides a solid foundation for just that. Thanks for watching today's video review. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like or telling a friend to check it out. You can see my old video about fan games, including the old Pokemon Type Wild video, right here. And you can also check out one of Shofu's videos on Pokkén Tournament here. He's been putting an insane amount of time into the game, and his Pikachu's already getting pretty sick. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time with more Nintendo content.